Hi everyone. Good session. And can you hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. So myself Balaji, I'm a solutions engineer. I'm going to present with my colleague, as I mentioned. So there is a story to tell, obviously, because I'm going to gripe a little bit about another brand. So I have to give a little bit of disclaimer. It's all about our experience, what we got while doing the migration, right? So anybody know about RCI? RCI is an vacation exchange, leader in the vacation exchange space. So what we do is we help the members to exchange their timeshares. So we have a good presence in web, and we are on online for a long time actually. So you have some of the interface we have, like for our members to search and book their resorts. So some of the clips I want to show you. So the web application, what we have is, it's using it was built for the like 20 plus years. So you can imagine we have a variety of technology on board. So right from mainframe to whatever the latest, Kubernetes, until the Kubernetes, so we're still testing. So all the technologies, when it comes to every period of time, so they slowly become a more of an branded, like using Oracle, IBM kind of technologies more and more in the past. So it's now in the last 3 years we are revamping entire website to get a better user experience, and get adapted with the new agile and DevOps practices. So that's where it's all the layers is started getting new technologies, right? So in this presentation we're going to mostly be talking about the coherence caching and how we're going to migrate it. So when it comes to the user experience, this is the initiative. We did that in 2007 to include a cache layer, which is, at that time Coherence is probably the best available in the market. So we went with the Coherence, and it was started using it for session management as well as the service management, service level caching. So the most of the caching, the data sets we use are hashes, and especially when it comes to session, it's very, very important because it's going to directly impact my customer experience, right? So because let's say the coherent cache layer is going to impact on something, obviously you're going to see the slow in the performance, or the page is not going to show up, or the user will be bumped back to the home page, and so on and so forth, right? So that's where we took a decision to use that coherence, and it was we have good days and bad days, and in the latest, in the modern days, we see more issues. That's where we started considering. So when it comes to the size of the cache, it's probably you might want to bring maybe 100 gig. There is a reason why it is 100 gig. Okay, I'll talk about that. So in this session, we're gonna talk about the session management only, mostly, because that is very critical. Once we do the session management, probably the other things, implementing other things are much easier. Okay. So why we made it, those change, you will see that. I'm going to talk about that anyway. I'll skip. So this is our Coherence infrastructure. You see that Coherence is basically has a proxy in between. It's a data grid, by the way, right? The grid technology, the grid is probably becoming older right now. So it's a grid based. There is a cluster, the Coherence cluster you see. It's all the nodes in multiple hardware, and it is the proxies in front of the hardware and the nodes, which will be redirected by all the calls coming from the clients. Okay, in this case, web client. So again, we have issues leaving proxy on its own, balancing in its own. We started getting the connection piling up one proxies. So we put a load balancer, in our case in F5, load balancer to manage the connection which is coming across to proxy, right? So So that's where the nodes will be storing here. So which is basically having scale durability. The main durability is the one of the thing which is one of the selling item they have, because it's backup. The backup is done in the grid. I'll show you how it is. So so this slide shows very interesting. It's probably you have seen when you put a coherence in Google, you probably see this particular picture. So this is how it works. The main thing with the coherence has many data types. Okay, the cache types. So not data types, cache types. So cache types means so actually the coherence was built originally based on the CPU model. So L1, L2, L3 cache. So the closer you are to the closer the cache you have in the client, near to the client, the faster it is. That's the whole logic is. So they have near cache, which is basically takes some space in the JVM application JVM itself. Okay. Again, I forgot to tell you. Coherence is Java based, right? It runs on Java. So it's taking a space in application JVM. You know how if you're managing Java application, you know how hard it is. So that's a one cache layer. Then there is another cache layer which is called local cache. You can designate certain cache on a particular JVM on a coherence JVM, that is called local cache. So that basically reduce the proximity. So I'm connecting to this node, so those whatever the caches available will be received from there. For your get, it will go there. So what happened at the same time? All the caches. Let's follow B. So if you use the B, it will be synced in the local cache and also the primary cache, and also a backup. It will come back on the third JVM you see on the bottom. So this is the remote cache where it will be syncing, and this is the backup where it makes. So it's very chatty. So there are scenarios we implemented. Want to see how the traffic of want to enable one of the monitoring tool, and it started because the application is so chatty. We got slowness in the performance in certain days. So it's so many options available in that to be configured just to have the basic things to get up and running, right? So these are the different type of cache, right? So available in Coherence. And another important thing in Coherence is the buckets. It has whenever you want to store a cache data, you have to specify a schema, data scheme, where it has its property defined. Like this bucket has 1 hour expiry time. This bucket is 2 hour expiry time. In Redis it's different. You probably do it at the client level, or you just based on the whole how this Redis is gonna how the cluster is going to work, or how the server is going to work, right? So the different buckets. So it's another important thing you to know. These are all in a configuration file. Before you load it, you have to include it in a configuration file. So it is at the mercy of the developer where he is going to put it in. Okay, so because at the large mix, you don't know exactly where this developer is going to store the cache and how long it's going to stay. But initially, we were very careful where we're going to put it and all. It's a problem. We have seen this problem because the cache is getting evicted, or cache and hit ratio, miss ratio was very high in many cases because of this. So obviously it's fall under the Hicks law of more options for the basic setup. So leaving the basic setup into a more configuration, the chances of getting more messy that environment is, right? So and obviously it's a JVM. Its JVM is again we have whenever there is a JVM issue happened, that's it. You get into a slowness and all, right? So all those are the things, and the connection type. They have different choices of connection type. How you connect from the client, whether you connect through a native client or through this TCP client, which all the very important choices you need to make before you design this environment, right? So the choices are one of the that's I personally feel like it's a complexities of being a basic setup. Then here is this is the very important thing. I can talk about that. So you see this diagram, and in 2017 January, on Oracle announced they use a different license policy between the cloud and the on-prem. So we had a EULA, full unlimited licensing kind of scheme, where whenever I have two CPU on-prem, I need only one license to implement. If it's in a cloud, I need two licenses. Okay, I'm just giving a small sample, right? Think about it in a bigger environment, how it impacts. It can stop your cloud migration project. It did for us, by the way. So that's one of the thing, and you see that why my cache size is 100 gig only. There's no other use case as storing cache. Yes, it does, but we locked into the licensing as well. We had to be very careful about how we scale our environment, right? And also this is Java based. It's I would say little aging in technology as well. So the automation and agile practices are not that very easy to implement. At least in our experience, we had many challenges to put upgrade in going through the life cycle of the software. Its issues. So that's where we consider Redis as a savior. We consider many platforms, especially the DB engine is the one of the thing which has really helped us. Okay, kickstart which cache engine to use it, right? My colleague Vivek will take over from here, and he's going to show how we did that. Thank you.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah, thank you, Balaji. So yes, I think we have all understood like what are the problems with Oracle, the main issues with Oracle licensing. And second thing is the setup. Like whenever you're trying to set up an Oracle instance, or whenever I wanted to set up Oracle Coherence, they just provide two modes. Either one is a standalone mode or the second is a cluster mode. And like when I started working, like when Balaji came and said like we have to explore Redis or something, I wanted to have my own Oracle Coherence cluster to play around with. But it was it was like very complex to set up my own dev environment setup also, which we couldn't do until we have some Oracle support. For even small things, we need to have Oracle support. That is when we have come with Redis. Redis is a very simple architecture. I love it because of its architecture. And there are different modes which I have considered when configuring Redis. The first one is the standalone mode. The second is the master and slave mode. And the third is the cluster mode. Today I'm going to give a demo, and in the demo I'm just using standalone mode. But when we migrated our session management, this is the architecture we have used. We have web session clients connecting to a load balancer, and in our case the load balancer is HA proxy. And to tell everyone, we are using Redis open source. So we used load balancer HA proxy, which is the version 1.5 plus. And the reason we used that particular version is because it had support for TCP check to be done on Redis nodes. And coming to my Redis setup, I had a master node and a slave node. And there is a Redis Sentinel which is working in each one of them to have a failover option being configured. Going ahead, as I said you, this is the architecture we are implementing today for the session management. But going ahead, we have even service cache which is going to be implemented. That is when I gave a thought telling we will go up with Redis cluster, where we will split up our nodes. If you can see the slot nodes, I am going to split up. I said all my session management nodes will be saved in master 1, and remaining all the data, whatever you are going to use for service cache, it will be stored in master 2. So this gives us the separation. If you want to scale it up independently and all this thing, which we can do it. If you want to increase your RAM configuration for a specific node, it makes your life simple in increasing the configuration there. Now, it's very simple. I'll just walk you through what all changes I have done. So whenever you're spinning up your Redis server, you always start up with a Redis configuration file. And these are the areas which I have touched. There are many more options which you can do, but I kept it very simple. I like the simplicity of Redis. We bind it with an IP address. We use the default port number. We enable the protected mode, yes. The replication is for the slave nodes. If I'm configuring my master, if I'm configuring my Redis serve for slave node, that is when you will enable the slave off and telling what is the master IP address and master port. Coming to limits, we had set some limits like the maximum clients as 10,000, maximum memory depends upon the nodes we had configured, like different nodes we have different configurations done to it. And the eviction policy which we used is least recently used eviction policy. For session management, this didn't really play an important role, because by default the session managements which you were storing in Redis had a default expiry time of 30 minutes, and which was good enough for our session management to get expired. But in case if our memory was getting full and you wanted an eviction policy to run, then we had set it up using least recently used. Next is we have used Redisson. The reason we have used Redisson is when we wanted, like our modules were deployed on Tomcat, and we wanted like Tomcat to store the session management into Redis. And in order to build this gap, you need some library which does it, and the library which we used is Redisson. There is another library which is available in market. I think people might have heard about it, which is called Redis. Redis did not have support for Tomcat 8 when we were working, and Redisson had good support for it, so we had used Redisson. Okay, and this is a simple configuration which I have done in Redisson. And as I said, my demo is with single server config. I just gave my address of my Redisson, and I said like which codec I am using. The codec is responsible for your serialization. So Redisson is having support for various codecs, depends upon your application. We use fast codec, which promises like it is 10 times faster than the normal Java serialization. And this is the code I'm just highlighting. We didn't really play with Redisson code because they already gave us a jar file. But in order to show you like what we are storing in Redis, I just wanted to show you highlight the section. We are telling like all our session management data is stored in hash format. And other configurations which you have to do on Tomcat, let us concentrate on the top part. That is the configuration which I have to do in Tomcat server.xml. Tomcat manager, like whatever manager thing you'll be configuring, it's very good tool. It's like plug and play. Earlier we were using Oracle Coherence, so we had like Oracle configuration there. Now tomorrow when you wanted to use a different session tool, like we were using Redis, we just had to go and change this to tell boss we are using Redis. So it's a very simple thing. So if you can just follow it, like we are having multiple modules deployed for it. So what I did is we had configured at the root context level, telling that that's my module, which is RCI login module, which has been configured, telling that is the root module, and it will start your session management at the root level, and that is the configuration which we have given for session cookie path. And obviously, whenever you are storing Java-based sessions, you always use JSession IDs, which you can even see in the browser. And in the manager, you just have to tell like what is the library you are using. I have said we are using Redis Session Manager. I have given it like what is the configuration file it has to read, and I said read mode as Redis. There are two different modes, read mode as Redis, and another mode is called local memory. If you set as memory, it will start using Tomcat's local memory, but we wanted to store session in Redis, and that's the reason we have given that configuration. And coming to cache properties, this really didn't help us with session management, but we had done some exploration, because when Balaji was speaking, we were even using we were going to use Redis for service cache, and in his example, like in his presentation, he spoke about different cache types which we are having, which need to have different eviction policies, right? So during my research, I found out like Spring has a good properties file which you can create, and if you can just see the first line of it, like we had like different types of caches when we wanted to set a different eviction policy to them, and this is how you can very easily do it. Next, let me walk through the demo. So this is my machine which has Tomcat, which is having Tomcat configuration. This is up and running for the demo. I have started it up, and there are different modules which have been configured. So let me just show you the Redisson.json file. And this is a simple configuration for Redisson.json, where I'm telling like that is my server where Redis is running, and that's the port number, and the codec which I want to use is fast codec. And second important configuration which you do is in the server.xml file. This has a lot of configuration, don't really, that's for all our modules. But for Redis this is what generally matters for us from the context. And you will see like all the contexts which are there in my application all have a manager configuration been configured part of it. The reason we did is we faced an issue like when we just configured it at root level, the session management was not getting shared with the different modules of a Tomcat. So that's the reason we had to configure it. Is there a better way of doing it? Yes, there can be, but we have to figure it out. But what was happening is a session was not getting shared with the different modules. So I had to configure like the session management for all my individual modules there. So this is what we have done here on Tomcat, and this is Redis. Let's see if any sessions, if any keys are there. As of now, no. Let's go to our website. So this is our home page. This is the root login module. So the main importance of our session management is we want the session to be shared between different modules. So this is our first module. This is our RCI or login module. So now once I give my username and password, it has to go to a different module. So now as you can see on the top, it has gone to a different module which is called dashboard. There is some issue with our application, this demo application. So it again asks you username and password, which I'll give you. But what I want to show you is the session IDs which starts. So from my dashboard module, what it does, it goes to weeks dashboard module. And what we really want to check session management is you want your JSession ID to be stored in Redis. And when I'm go through to different modules, you should see that this JSession ID is being shared with different modules. Now, if you guys can see it, the JSession ID, I'll just remember the last 4 digits, which is 5D. And let's go and check whether it has been stored in Redis or not. So you can see like 5D is stored here, okay? And as we have used hash map, let's just try to go and check what is the type of our hash, type of our session ID, session key. It's hash, and let's check what is its time to live as of now. So this is in seconds. So as I said you, like whenever a session is getting stored, it automated. So by default, session management is 30 minutes for it. So if I keep hitting this, it will start decreasing. After 30 minutes, this key gets expired. Okay. And if you want to view what information you have in my key, and this is all the information. So you can see like whatever is the generic currency code which has been used, deposit. These are different information which are my module wants it. So you can see all those different information coming. So what I'll do is I'll just go here and just try to search for some resort. So I'll look for Florida West Coast and click search. And you will see now from weeks dashboard, it will change itself to a week search module. Okay. And in that case, what is the session ID? If session management is being done properly, you can see like it is still storing everything in the same session ID, and this helped our life simple, like with session being maintained. And you can see now you have more information which is getting added to your session. Like it gives you like what region you have been exploring and all this thing. Like these are all the information which is being needed for our application developers or something. So that's pretty much there. So this is what we have explored, like, and I wanted to show you in demo like different configurations we have done and the session key store and validation. And during all this process, there were different lessons which we have learned. Like when we started with Redis, I didn't even knew like what Sentinel was and all. So I knew like Sentinel can be used for failover. This was all the lessons which we have learned on the time. And as the first point says, like supportability of Redis client for different application servers. When we started, there were 2 different clients which were available. The one is Redisson and second is Redisson. And when we wanted to use Java 8, that is when I learned like Redisson is going to be much helpful because Redis did not have support for Tomcat 8. Yes, there has been a lot of Redis learning curve and configuration. How do I configure? I learned like how to set up different modes. How do you set up a cluster? And the third big thing is elimination of cluster. If you see at our coherence configuration and the diagram which Balaji has explained, it was quite a complex architecture, right? And I'm frankly telling you, whenever we have issues, we always have to have Oracle support guy on a call to help us in troubleshooting. We cannot. And why? Before even demo, like I wanted Balaji's help to set up something. Coherence has a tool like Redis CLI called Co-Query Language. I think it's a simple tool. Just it will tell you like what are your caches and what are your sessions you have to store. That even took us 2 weeks to set up, and without Oracle support guy, we weren't able to do it. Okay. JVM tuning issues, we don't have to worry about JVM right now. We don't have garbage collection issues right now. It's all simple written in C. Voiding various cache types, as you have seen in Oracle, you have different cache types, like remote cache, local cache, replicated cache. I don't have all those headaches right now. And better health check configurations. If you have seen my architecture, I have configured like Redis Sentinel as part of each node. There's few articles which have been read and some few suggestions like people telling we can move out Redis Sentinel out of it, keep it outside. And instead of using load balancer, what my web session clients can do is they can use Sentinel as service discovery, right? You can directly ask Sentinel who is the master, and I can just immediately start writing my keys to the master. That is the configuration. Still, I have to test it. I haven't tested it, but right now this is how my setup looks like. So this is pretty much which we wanted to discuss, and thank you all for attending the sessions. If there's any Q&A, we would take it.
Any questions?
Yep. Balaji.
Hey, thanks for that. Could you talk about maybe if you had any like savings or in performance or cost versus coherence?
Cost versus, Coherence is pretty expensive. I don't want to tell the numbers. It's an expensive one. That's one of the selling point to our management to take it up, to the high level, right? So it's the first one. So and definitely we see some a lot of advantages in the sense we can expand a lot of use cases to store caches in our Coherence, as I already mentioned, and I didn't get to some benchmark because we need to, but I'm pretty confident that it would be, because we started realizing we need to remove near cache from our application. So that pretty much remove all the complexity from Coherence also, right? So we don't see that we're not going to miss those things in Redis. That's what I feel. And this, as I said, aged technology. Now the internet is, the network is faster. Even I keep that in remote, I don't think it's a big deal of it. Yeah. So, and in fact, we are planning to increase our cache type size to double. Okay. So we don't have to worry too much about expiring and buckets and stuff. Yeah.
Yep. Any other questions?
You stole my line. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was awesome.
Thank you so much.